Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to calmly and clearly break down exactly why a really promising Canadian permanent residency application was rejected. Why? So you can avoid that exact same fate. Imagine spending months prepping your application, taking the language tests, paying all those fees, and gathering a mountain of documents, only to open up a refusal email. It's a heartbreaking scenario. But, by understanding where others went wrong, you can absolutely protect your own journey. Let's get into it.
It's a super stressful thought for any applicant, right? How can someone who clearly appears to qualify for express entry, someone with a highly competitive score, still get a refusal after months of waiting? Well, it actually happens way more often than you might think. And honestly, the reasons usually have absolutely nothing to do with a lack of initial qualifications. To demystify this whole process, we've got a clear agenda for you today. Number 1, we'll meet Daniel. Number 2, we'll look at mistakes with your evidence. Number 3, mistakes with application details. Number 4, why was Daniel actually refused? And finally, number 5, what to do next.
Let's start with Section 1 and meet Daniel, the applicant. Now, Daniel is a fictional case study, but his story represents very real, very common problems that trip up countless people every single day. He's a 34-year-old professional living outside Canada. He's got a bachelor's degree, several years of skilled foreign work experience, strong English, and what looks like a totally perfect, completely clean immigration history.
Like a lot of you watching right now, Daniel built his profile very carefully, step by step. He patiently knocked out his language test, he got his educational credential assessment done, built that express entry profile, and went all the way to receiving that highly desired invitation to apply. He celebrated with his wife, completely thinking the hardest part was finally over.
But here's the reality. Getting that invitation, that's actually where the real work begins. Let's move into Section 2, mistakes with your evidence, because this is exactly where things started to go wrong for Daniel.
Let's dive into his first major error. Daniel thought to himself, hey, I received an invitation to apply, so I'm basically approved. That assumption right there was his first massive mistake. He completely forgot that an invitation simply means he now has the burden to prove every single claim he just made in that original profile.
Look, an ITA merely invites you to apply. It is an opportunity. It is not a final approval or a guarantee. Immigration officers still have to rigorously assess your eligibility, dig into your supporting documents, and check your overall admissibility to Canada. Daniel really should have been thinking, okay, now I need to meticulously prove everything instead of, great, I already qualified.
And that mindset led directly to his second mistake. For his work experience evidence, Daniel submitted an employment letter that only showed his job title and his salary. He totally failed to provide the detailed, day-to-day job duties required to prove his actual work experience. Immigration officers don't just glance at a job title and check a box. They need to see that your day-to-day duties actually match the occupation code you claimed. Never, ever assume just having the right title is enough.
This kind of carelessness extended to his finances too, which brings us to mistake number 3. Daniel had to show proof of funds. He had the money in his account, sure, but some of it was a very recent, totally unexplained cash transfer from a friend. His mistake was assuming that any money sitting in a bank account just automatically qualifies. It doesn't work that way. You cannot just show money, you have to legitimately explain the source of all your funds and make sure they meet the strict requirements set by IRCC.
Moving beyond his evidence, Daniel's application unravels even further. In Section 3, let's look at the careless mistakes he made in managing his specific application details.
Mistake 4 was an absolute disaster for his case. Years ago, Daniel was actually refused a visitor visa to another country, but following some really bad advice from an agent, he hid this previous refusal. Look, never lie on an immigration application. Immigration officers view hiding relevant facts as a very serious misrepresentation. When they discover it, and trust me, they usually do, the focus completely shifts. The question is no longer why that old visa was refused, but why you intentionally tried to hide it.
His fifth mistake was just rushing the process. Daniel uploaded most of his documents, but right before his deadline, he realized one was missing. Instead of fixing it, he dangerously assumed the government would just contact him later and ask for the missing document, rather than strictly following his checklist. You can't do that. You absolutely must submit a complete application supported by every single required document right from the very start.
Finally, we have mistakes 6 and 7. After submitting his application, Daniel and his wife actually changed jobs, but he didn't bother to update IRCC. He ignored the fact that major life changes can seriously impact an application that's already in progress.
On top of that, he blindly signed forms prepared by his agent without carefully reviewing his own information. Listen, it is your history and your eligibility on the line. You have to understand everything being submitted in your name.
Which brings us to Section 4. Why was Daniel refused? Well, when that refusal email finally landed in his inbox, it wasn't because he lacked the initial qualifications. It was because his execution of the application completely fell apart.
All of those seemingly small inconsistencies and missing pieces totally undermined his case. His work experience wasn't fully supported, his funds were highly questionable, he hid a past refusal, and a document was just flat out missing. This proves a vital lesson for all of us. A high CRS score is not a guarantee of permanent residence. A high score gets you the invitation for sure, but flawless, truthful evidence is what actually gets you the approval.
So, what can you learn from this? In our final section, Section 5, we're going to cover what to do next. If you ever find yourself in a heartbreaking situation like Daniel's and you do face a refusal, it is absolutely crucial to calmly understand your next steps so you don't repeat the exact same errors.
First and foremost, do not just blindly apply again. There has been a really beneficial recent change that you need to know about. As of May 26, 2026, IRCC now sends the officer's decision notes directly along with the refusal letter. You have to read them carefully. You need to understand exactly what went wrong, whether it was insufficient evidence or an admissibility issue, before you even think about deciding to try again.
Also, please beware of outdated advice online. You might think having a standard job offer gives you 50 or maybe even 200 extra CRS points, but the reality, it gives you exactly 0. Since March 25, 2025, the rules have changed. Older articles might tell you otherwise, but you must always check the current requirements directly with IRCC.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, absolutely vital thought. Before you hit submit on your application, don't just ask yourself, do I have enough points? You need to ask, can I prove everything I've claimed? Your points get you noticed, but can you meticulously, truthfully prove every single detail of your life with hard evidence? That one question makes the difference between a successful application and a really expensive refusal. So are you truly prepared to prove your case?